Straight into the wall. Gets another bite! Oh, goodness me! Alexis Sanchez, unstoppable!
Robin is there! Iron Robin! Has surely won it for Bayern Munich! It's Ibrahimovic! 1-0 PSG. And here he is again. Here he is again. That's astonishing. It's absolutely world class.
Hello, welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. This is the Satchel. It's that Thursday evening feeling where myself and someone else run through the European fixtures of the week and have a little bit of a chat about them. I'm very happy to say that John is back after his hiatus on Monday. How's the rash, John? Is it all cleared up now with the cream?
Yes, very good. As well, got bargain, 2 for the price of 1, so quite happy with that, just in case it flares up again.
Oh, ace. I mean, that's what you want from life at the end of the day. We jest, of course, but good to have you back. Good to have you back again. So we have a few bits and bobs to run through then for this evening. We're going to kind of cycle back from the Europa League action of the night, and we're going to go back through to start with the Champions League, which happened on Tuesday and Wednesday. These were the first legs of the 4 remaining ties that were due to be played. Let's start with the Tuesday action then. As painful as it is for both of us, we'll start with Barcelona and Arsenal at the Emirates. So, what did you make of this overall? Would it be fair to say that probably the better side won the game, but the better side on the night lost it?
I think that's a fair comment. That there's no doubting that Barcelona are the better team, and you've seen that over a number of seasons now, but Arsenal certainly started this game better than they had done previous European ties, especially big ones. They hadn't been playing well at home. They'd lost to Bayern and Barca in the past as well. They defended very well for the first half before wasted opportunities, sadly. And then second half, it was 2 lapses of concentration that cost them. And it was very telling that in the interviews afterwards, it was Per Mertesacker and Aaron Ramsey, the interview that I saw, that they were commenting on how they had to take any chance they could to score a goal because they knew that Barcelona were bound to score at some time because they're just that good a side, you can't keep them out. So to have any chance in the tie, you really need to get a goal of your own. And I think Arsenal were just guilty of that, of not taking any of their chances they made.
Yeah, absolutely, and they'll probably look back on this and think what could have been, because as you say, those early chances really, but particularly Oxlade-Chamberlain one before he went off injured was the key moment of the game. What did you make of Barcelona then? I mean, they're dubbed as the current Champions League holders and dubbed as one of the favourites for the competition. It didn't really impress particularly, did they?
No, they weren't great first half, and I think they looked better in the second, but for all the opportunities that Arsenal did have, there was only, like you said, the Oxlade-Chamberlain chance and maybe another that was a clear-cut chance. The others were sort of half chances or mistakes that Arsenal had pounced on, and Barca just looked quite content with just keeping the ball and maybe wearing a team down. I saw a stat that if they matches were recorded for points from the first half of the season, then they'd actually be behind Real Madrid in La Liga at the moment. So they do look like very much a second-half team that will just wear down an opposition and look to tire them out and score a lot of the goals in the second half. So, but they definitely weren't at their best, which is probably more than anything a worry as an Arsenal fan as to what they could do when they're at their maximum potential with the next leg coming.
Yeah, and it, of course that second leg is on the 16th of March, so was it 2 weeks Wednesday? It'd be foolish to say that Arsenal can't progress because anything can happen in football, and a dodgy red card or penalty or something, and a game changes. But would it be fair to say that Arsenal are probably now going to turn their attentions elsewhere and accept the inevitable?
Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that Arsenal will go through now. I don't think any team has ever come back from 2-0 down at home in the Champions League to progress through to the next round. I could be wrong, but so yeah, please tweet me if I am, but I'm pretty sure that's the stat. The worrying thing is when that fixture happens and the league games that are around it, that for Arsenal, that you don't want to go away to Barcelona and just sort of put the kids out and have the team have an absolute hiding and get beat sort of 5-6-0, because that does nothing for your morale. Equally, putting out your first team in a competition that you're more than likely not going to really progress in and tiring them out for 90 minutes isn't a great position to be in either. So it's a tough one for Arsene Wenger on who he fields for that match.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a quandary, isn't it? Absolutely. Now, speaking of games that were a bit of a quandary, that would lead us into the second game of the night, which was Bayern Munich, again, one of sort of the favourites for the competition this year. They hosted, they were going away to the J Stadium where Juventus were the hosts. This game was just bizarre because Bayern were 2-0 up, goals from Muller and Robben, seemed to be cruising. And then Juve, something went off, something just snapped, and one of our favourites, Dybala, and a Stefan Sturaro goal levelled it up at 2-2. You'd think the 2 away goals would suit Bayern, but was there enough shown by Juve that they could cause real problems in the second leg now?
I think what this showed is that Juve are perhaps a little bit more underestimated than people were taking them for granted slightly against the Bayern team. I will stress though that Bayern Munich had essentially none of their defence, what should be there. I think it was Kimmich and Alaba, I think, were both playing centre-back in this game.
Yeah.
The team was quite makeshift. But it was a good tie and it was a good fight back from Juve, but conceding 2 goals away is going to be difficult. And Juventus themselves have their own defensive difficulties with Chiellini being out, and they sort of played the hybrid 4-4-2 into a 3-5-2 that would sort of change the formation throughout the game, depending whether they're in possession or not, that they used against Napoli. The 2 goals, obviously, later into the second half gives them a chance, but you would still favour Bayern Munich, and you'd think with players coming back for them, it certainly looks better. It does, however, keep Juventus's European home record. They haven't lost now in 17 games in Europe. The last team to beat them was actually Bayern Munich. So it's quite an impressive record. But a great game to watch, but you've still got to favour Bayern in the second leg.
Yeah, that back four of Lahm, Kimmich, Alaba and Juan Bernat. So arguably Alaba playing out of position. He's very multifunctional, but at centre-back you probably don't get the best from him. Bernat, certainly not the first choice full-back, and as you say, Kimmich, certainly not first choice midfielder, let alone centre-back.
Yeah,
so.
even Lahm, I know he's played more right-back this season, but even then you've seen him deployed in midfield, and you've seen Rafinha at right-back a lot, so it was definitely very different. No Boateng, no Benatia, no Badstuber. Well, not that that's a huge surprise, obviously, because he's always injured, but...
God bless him, yeah, he is, isn't he? So what do your stuff Italian-wise? What do Juve need to do in the Bayern Arena now? I mean, do they go there and sort of dig out the quintessentially Italian performance of putting the men behind the ball, being tight and hopefully nicking a goal, or do you think they have to go there and try and set out a template of scoring early and sitting on it?
It's tough because Juventus, in the league they will go out and they will pressure teams in Syria because they are expected to win every game. And I don't think they're expected to win this. There's still pressure on Bayern Munich to score and perform in front of their home fans. So I think that will actually suit Juve in that they can sit back and be patient. And it's something that Italian teams are very good at, being patient in a game. And, if there's only 10 minutes left, they won't panic if they still just need that one goal. And that will more than likely be the tactic that they'll try and employ. Using players like Juan Cuadrado will be very big in that game for his pace. I think you'll definitely see Mandzukic starting again as well for his hold-up play. And, players like Dybala and Pogba are the sort of the rogue elements of they can turn a game themselves. But then you look at the quality that Bayern Munich have got in Arjen Robben, Douglas Costa, Lewandowski. They've got so many match winners as well. I still favour Bayern, but I think Juve will go there to sit, hold out maybe till half-time. If it's 0-0, then they'll start pushing forwards a little bit more and try and get Bayern to come on to them and hit them on a counter.
Yeah, let's see what happens, and I think it'll be a decent watch, that second leg. So it certainly was a good first leg to watch.
It's one of the frustrating things about the Arsenal game being on at the same time, because I just really want to watch that game.
Same, yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't quite concentrate, mainly for reasons that my Sky box wasn't working very well. So big shout out to Sky there. Thanks very much. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk Manchester City then. Now, they went to Dynamo Kiev off the back of mixed press. I think it's fair to say we'd decide they put out against Chelsea in the FA Cup the week before, going out 5-1. They're out of that competition now. They prioritised this competition. They went to Ukraine and got a 3-1 victory. So would you say that was a justified decision to rest all those players?
I don't know if you justify the result from the decision he made to rest those players. It clearly it does, in the sense that they went and they got the result they wanted in the Champions League, and they've got I've forgotten the name of the competition, the League Cup final, at the weekend as well to look at. So, in that sense it worked, but I still think throwing a game when you're a club like Man City with the resources they have just seems very, very strange. I do have some sympathy for them with the amount of injuries they've got, but you would think that a club with that sort of money would have a better, so-called second string team. But it was a very impressive performance. It's not something you've seen English teams do for a long time, to do a number on a team in an away leg, get the goals they needed, so that when they've the return leg they can be a bit more comfortable. He can rotate for that game if he needs to. 3 away goals is huge, and you saw how important having that spine of the team back together really is for City, with Hart, Company, Aguero and David Silva. I think it's the first time all four have played together for like a full 90 minutes in months. So really important to have all those players back.
Yeah, and the 3 goals, of course, Aguero, Silva and Toure with the goals. So, yes, even Yaya turned up, which was nice of him for at least 10 minutes anyway. So, it's a good result for City. And at 2-1, I think Joe Hart made a very good save. Could easily have been 2-2. And then that Toure late goal, you'd think, kills that tie, because Kiev are notoriously not good travellers. And I think this is the first game they played in 11 weeks. So,
yeah, it's hard to get up for a game like... I mean, you'll get excited, but to get the physical sort of fitness levels for that, when Man City are in the full swing, in the sort of the last third of a season, they're going to be so much fitter than Kiev are in that game.
Yeah, and I don't think the TV companies particularly scheduled things very well, because on the same night they also pulled out another tie, which I must confess didn't exactly excite anyone, and it proved, as PSV Eindhoven hosted Atletico Madrid, who are notoriously the dull specialists across their league and indeed Champions League. It's effective, but it's not very fun to watch, is it? 0-0 in Eindhoven. I mean, you'd think Atletico will go through in the second leg, wouldn't you? Probably 1-0.
Yeah, you'd think so. It's not exciting, but Atletico did have chances in the game. PSV went down to 10 men, so they could have won it, but they didn't finish those chances. A couple of good saves from PSV's keeper, but I think with Atletico, any time they can sort of blank a team, they're more than happy to come back for the second leg and think they can beat most teams at home. But yeah, Griezmann had a really notable miss in the game. It was surprising because he's been in such good form this season. He's one of the sort of really talked about prospects, and whether anyone can sort of get him out of Atletico in the summer will be interesting. You expect to see him have a big summer as well at the Euros for France.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a spell where I think he hasn't scored in something like 6 or 7 games. He's had a real lull recently, but as you say, he's their biggest threat, and I think it's Torres missed a good chance as well. So, and all that after Gaston Pereiro, the 20-year-old great hope of PSV, had been sent off. Should be noted though that PSV had Luke De Jong suspended, and he's been their main go-to guy for goals this season. So, it's 0-0. It's a tough result. I mean, PSV only have to get one, and Atletico suddenly have then got to work out how to score more than once at home. So it's not dead, the tie, is it?
Yeah, I don't think PSV will be too upset with the tie. Having a man sent off and then not conceding against a team that you're not really fancied against is probably a decent result for them. The fact that they're through the group stages is quite big for PSV anyway, because they're not exactly a team that would be fancied to do that. So they'll go for the second leg and throw everything they've got at the game. And like you say, if they get a goal, then it's all on Atletico to turn the tie around.
Yeah, absolutely. We shall see. Before we leave the Champions League, we should say that next week, Christ, we're doing some content here, aren't we? But we'll be back next Thursday to talk about the second legs of the other Champions League ties, which are Benfica playing host to Zenit with a 1-goal lead. PSG go to Chelsea with a 2-1 lead. Wolfsburg play at home to Ghent with a 3-2 lead. And Real Madrid play host to Roma with a 2-0 advantage. So we will be back next week to discuss those as well. So no rest for us, is there? Is
that next week or is it the week after? I can't remember.
It might be the week after. Now I've said that. Should we find
it's
out?
It's the 8th and 9th of March, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Well,
yes. So we've got a week break.
Our listeners get at least 1 week off from listening to us dribble on. So God bless them for that. Okay, so not next week, week after. Turn up next week. We won't be here. Let's move on to the Europa League then. Now, this is a tournament that has wrapped up this particular round with tonight's matches, and I think I'm right in saying you say the draw is tomorrow for the next stage.
Yes, that is 1 o'clock Central European time, which is midday our time, I believe.
I think it is, yeah, and that will of course be the 26th of February,
yes,
2016. So
yeah, as you're listening to this, if you're on your lunch break, you'll be able to check the ties. But we'll put some tweets out for that anyway.
Yes, yeah, we'll ping the draw out. Of course, don't tune in at midday for the draw because it will take at least 4 hours for them to talk around it and do all sorts of fancy displays before they actually put the balls into the hat. So, yeah, maybe just wait for us to tweet instead. It'll be easier. Let's look at the ties then. Rather go through the whole draw because there's quite a lot of fixtures here. I want to just pull out a few games that both you and I saw bits of. So we'll touch on, firstly, there was a game played earlier in the week. We haven't quite worked out exactly why, but Lokomotiv Moscow and Fenerbahce ended in a 1-1 draw, which sees Fener through 3-1 on aggregate. Mehmet Topal getting the equaliser from Samedov's early goal for Lokomotiv. So that puts the Turks through. Then on to tonight's games. Let's start with Spurs and Fiorentina then. We sort of discussed, myself and Drew, prior to tonight's games last week. We said that Lavioli would probably score away from home, and that's where we felt it could be the decisive tie or change in the tie. They couldn't score, and Spurs pretty much eased to victory, didn't they? Were you surprised Fiorentina didn't come out more?
A little bit, because they put out basically their strongest team that they could for this game. Spurs did well. They had near enough their strongest side minus Harry Kane, and Fiorentina it was a fairly even game, but they had a bit more of the ball, but they just couldn't get their shots on target, and their finishing wasn't good enough tonight. Tottenham really punished them. They made some defensive errors, especially for the first goal. Ryan Mason latched onto a sort of loose tackle and did a very good finish. Lamela scored a great goal as well. Just really calm composure in the box and surrounded by players. And Tottenham ran out deserved winners. I'm not overly surprised that Tottenham went through on the tie necessarily, but the manner of the defeat for Fiorentina is a little bit worrying. Their form has certainly slipped off, and the same thing's kind of happening in Serie A. They're very 50-50 games, so it can go one way or the other. They're starting to look a bit tired, and that squad is starting to look a little bit thin now.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Particularly with this long Serie A season, it's going to be tough for them to kick back in. But it's tight in Serie A, as you've mentioned, so they'll need to find their form pretty quickly. Let's also touch on Borussia Dortmund just briefly. They went to Portugal. They got the early goal, first 20 minutes. It's actually gone down as a Casillas own goal. Aubameyang sort of doing his very best to miss from around about 4 yards. I think he smashed it against the crossbar, it hit Casillas and went in. So I always think it's harsh on keepers when that happens, but that's what it's gone down as. Now, with a certain other team going out tonight, which we'll come on to, do you think that Dortmund are going to be one of the favourites to go all the way now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dortmund are right up there. I don't think you can look away from Spurs. Obviously, they have got the distraction of a league challenge, which Dortmund don't have. I know they're only 8 points behind Bayern, but you can't really see them besting Bayern to the Bundesliga title. So that is possibly a distraction to Tottenham. And there are still other big names in there. There's a lot of Spanish teams in there that have got experience winning this trophy. So there's some big sides. 3, in fact, from England, with Liverpool and Man United, dare I say, are still possibles for it. I know they're not having the greatest of seasons, but it's still a very big club and a big name, and you can always turn things around. So it's the Europa League. The last couple of years has actually got more exciting. I know it's sort of branded as the ugly sister of the Champions League, but in these later stages, you do get some really, really good ties and some great games to watch.
Well, speaking of Man United, it was almost seamless that you should mention them. We should touch on their victory. Now, in the end, it was comfortable over Midtjylland of Denmark, but they went in front. Sisto getting the goal sort of first half hour, and Midtjylland took a shock lead. And Manchester United in the shape of a very unlikely hero by the name of Marcus Rashford, who I think it's fair to say everyone bar United fans, even a lot of United fans, had probably never heard of, popped up and scored twice himself and put Manchester United through overall 5-1 on the night and 6-3 on aggregate. What does this say about United? I mean, does it just say that the Michelins are a pretty poor side and that United have rightfully beat them, or do you think it sort of says, well, Man United should be destroying sides like this anyway?
It's hard to tell because the team that United put out, as you say, that there's names that people will know like Juan Mata and Memphis Depay, people like that. But like Rashford, I'd never heard of. Riley, I think I'd seen come on in a game. Varela is a name that not many people will know. Lingard has got a few mentions here and there with a few of his goals this season, but he's again a very young player. So for them to go out with that many youngsters and score that many goals is actually quite impressive. The counter argument to that is that Man United shouldn't have lost the away leg 2-1 against the team who our very own Ross of the Breakfast Pod has spoken quite. I don't want to say. Yeah, I was trying to find the right word. Thank you. Scathingly about how Michelin like to play football. So it's an expected victory, but there was real pressure on Man United, especially on Van Gaal, because if he'd lost tonight's game, then I don't think there was any coming back for him, and he had to walk out the door. But the other side of it is you saw how excited the United players were, and that they really needed this win and this sort of boost of confidence, because obviously morale was very low in the dressing room, and especially with the amount of players that they keep seeming to pick up injuries. I mean, they had De Gea, was it in the last leg, was injured in the warm-up tonight. Martial goes down with an injury in the warm-up as well. And you just think, if your luck's getting that bad, just everything's going horribly wrong for you. And Juan Mata as well, when it was 2-1 to Michelin, Juan Mata had a penalty chance that was saved. So I'd imagine United, the players and the fans, were thinking the worst was going to happen, but they turned it round.
Yeah, they got through by hook or by crook, and some small piece of good news for them injury-wise ahead of the clash with Arsenal in the Premier League on Sunday, which of course we will cover on our next Breakfast Pod. Cheap plug, but Marcus Rojo came on in the 79th minute for the aforementioned Riley, so you'd think that would kind of be to try and get him ready for that game on Sunday. So you think that he would at least slot in for that. I suppose that's a bonus, and we don't know as of yet about Martial whether it is a sort of a precautionary adjustment to the side or whether he has indeed done his hamming. We shall see. But they are through, nevertheless. So by hook or by crook, they've made the next stage. Now, a side that haven't made the next stage, Napoli. What happened here, John? I mean, what's fair to say they've gone out to a bit of a fluke, but is this a big result for Villarreal or a bigger result for Napoli?
I don't know that you could say it's a big result for Villarreal because they're hardly a small club and they do tend to do well in this competition. I think this is partly down to the first leg, Sarri resting players like Higuain and Lorenzo Insigne, big players for the club that would normally be first team players. And it was because he was concentrating so much on the league, and he said himself, this competition is almost above his level. He's only ever been a Serie B manager. He comes up with Empoli and then gets the Napoli job, and now he's contending for the Scudetto and is expected to win the Europa League as well. And it was a lot of pressure for him. Tonight he did put in Higuain. Hamsik was in the team, Insigne as well, but he did, most importantly, change the midfield round, and Valdefiore came in alongside Dav Lopez in midfield, with Alan and Jorginho not playing and being rested, and it really had an effect on the game. Napoli started fine, and they went a goal in front, a very good goal from Marek Hamsik, good volley from outside the edge of the box, but they just couldn't control the midfield. And Villarreal took advantage of that, and there was a lot of luck in their goal. Thomas Pina putting a cross in that basically just went straight into the back of the net, completely mishit. But that all came from Napoli giving the ball away too much in midfield, and Villarreal have a sustained bit of pressure. And once they got that goal, they knew they could sit back and defend deep, and that's what they did. And they defended well for the next sort of 30 minutes of the game. Napoli couldn't break them down. Higuain really only had one chance. but when you don't have your two best central midfielders who can ping the ball about and control the tempo of a game, it's going to affect the way you play, especially up front.
Yeah, I know you, of course, missed out on talking about Napoli-Milan on Monday's pod, but it struck me as a very similar type of performance where they were hit by a sucker punch, obviously Milan in the case of Monday and Villarreal tonight, and then basically tried to rush it and desperately tried to get in front again, and then sort of almost got frustrated at themselves to not be able to get that breakthrough. So it's a tough one to take, really is. But Villarreal, they gutted it out and they've made the next stage. And speaking of sides that gutted, I myself as a French football follower, I was gutted to see St Etienne go out. More on another French team in a minute, but St Etienne have gone out after a 4-4 draw on aggregate away at Basel. Now they were behind early on, Soufi with the goal for Basel in 15 minutes, but they equalised in the 89th minute from Bayern, who's scored in the first leg, I think, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and then went up literally the next minute up the other end of the pitch, and Soufi smashed in what proved to be the crucial goal because, of course, Basel had 2 away goals to St Etienne's 1. Basel, they keep doing it, don't they? This competition they seem to like, and once again they've knocked out one of the great teams of European history.
Yeah, they've got a good pedigree in Europe, at least in terms of this competition, and not forgetting, they're a team that have had decent runs in the Champions League as well, playing against better opposition, if you like. So they're experienced enough to know how to get through European ties. I mean, the fact that they are, I can't remember how many points clear it is in their league, but they look dead certs to win their league if they haven't already. It means they can rest players and they can come into these competitions fresh. But St Etienne gave them a really good run. I must admit, I only saw highlights of it, and I saw a few glimpses from the first half, and it looked like St Etienne had some really good chances in the game and just didn't take them, which I certainly know another French team were also really guilty of tonight, and it's cost them as well.
Yeah, it's just really so gutted because the outpouring of joy when they equalised, and then straight up the other end, it was the classic sucker punch. But hey, such is life. Gary Neville's a happy man again. We won't go into it in too much detail, but Valencia romping once again 4-0 away in Rapid Wien. It's a 10-0 aggregate victory. Liverpool also progressed. Again, not a lot to say about this game, but an early penalty from James Milner sort of summed up the tie. It wasn't the most exciting, but one goal ultimately won it. I want to give you an opportunity just to talk about Lazio, who are the sole Italian representative in the next stage now. 3-1 victory tonight, 4-2 on aggregate, against, a Galatasaray side that's not the best. A little bit of transition going on there, but Parolo, Felipe Anderson, and a certain German with the goals, and Lazio are through.
Yeah, really good, solid performance from Lazio. I'm sure most people know Galatasaray aren't the greatest team when travelling away from home, especially in Europe. But Lazio did the job. He put out a fairly strong side tonight, and it was nice to see Klose get a goal. Believe it or not, that's his first goal of the season, which is a very strange thing to say for someone who has scored so many. But he really needed that. There was a few sort of concerns about Candreva not starting, but he hasn't been in the greatest form, which was then equally confusing as Felipe Anderson started the game, who also hasn't been in the greatest form, but he got a goal tonight. It was a tap-in, to be fair, but still he got his goal. Parolo, good header and good finish for his. And it's a nice boost for Lazio, because this is essentially this is the only thing they can win this season is this trophy. So they've got a fight for a European space in Serie A, but it is just for the Europa League again. So they can really go all out in this competition and see how far they can go.
And will be on their day. They can beat anyone, so they will be a danger, so to speak. Right, let's talk about a couple of German sides. Shakhtar. Now, this Ukrainian against the German side, I should say. Yeah, Schalke.
Oh, there we go.
But they notoriously don't travel well, and yet they turned up at Schalke tonight at the Veltins Arena and smashed 3 goals past Schalke and ultimately won the tie. I thought they had a chance, but I thought Schalke would ultimately prevail. This is a real blow for Schalke, isn't it? Speaking of sides that could potentially have gone further in this competition.
Yeah, this is huge for them. I was really surprised by the performance. Again, only seeing snippets of this. Obviously, there's so many games going on at once, but I was amazed that Schalke didn't even get a goal. I know their form has been somewhat up and down in the Bundesliga, but Shakhtar just do not play well away from home generally, and they've lost so many players as well. Most of the Brazilians have left there now. I think it's just Tyson and William Nem, I think. Wellington Nem, sorry, like the few that are left there now. So it's a really, really bad blow. The problem Schalke seems to have at the moment is scoring goals. I think Huntelaar's going through a bit of a dry patch at the moment. Leroy Sané, as soon as there was talk of him being possibly pinched in January and a big transfer move and a lot of money being thrown about associated with his name, his performances seem to have dipped slightly. The only bit I did see of sort of promising play from Schalke was right at the start of the game. They got a free kick, and Drew's favourite, Jonas Geiss, took the free kick and hit the post, inside of the post. And I don't know, maybe if that went in, it might have been a different story. But yeah, Shakhtar just on the break, just so quick, so fast, and absolutely ruthless in front of goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other German side, they are safely through. That's what I was coming to previously. 2 goals for Kalim Ballarab. One in particular was an absolute sweet one. They went through 4-1 over Sporting Club de Portugal, who certainly are, I would say, focused on other things, i.e. Liga NOS. But 4-1 victory for Leverkusen. Along with Dortmund, they're going to be a side to keep an eye on, aren't they now?
Yeah, really good team. Perhaps disappointing they're not doing better in the Bundesliga with the squad they've got. But they've got Javier Hernandez, who's been in fantastic form this season. One of the goals scored tonight by Çalhanoğlu, who's got to be one of the best strikers of a ball in Europe. Just really clean through it. And it wasn't from a set piece for once. It was in open play as well. And as you say, the 2 goals from Bellarabi, both really good finishes. They've got a lot of exciting young players there. It's slightly surprising in the sense that Sporting, because they're doing so well in the Liga NOS, you thought they might have put up a bit more of an effort tonight, especially with Jorge Jesus in charge, because he's also got a good record in this competition. So I'm sure he'll be disappointed, if not the owners, who obviously just want that league victory.
Yeah, that's definitely our focus. But as you say, it'll be disappointing for them to go out quite so easily tonight. The final game I want to touch on before we give the listeners the other results is the other French club that have gone out tonight, Marseille. I thought they put up a really brave performance. They were very unfortunate to lose the first leg due to missed chances at home, and they lost to Bilbao in the first leg 1-0. And it was a similar story again in the away leg. They went a goal in front. Michy Batshuayi equalised late on by Sabine with a very tidy taken header at sort of with 9 minutes to go. Stephen Fletcher missing a really good chance, and once again, Marseille have flattered to deceive. What does this kind of mean for Michel, maybe in particular? I should probably be asking myself this question rather, but Michel, they're not gonna win Liga. Obviously, they're probably not gonna qualify for the Champions League, and they're out of the one competition they maybe could have focused on. So where do you think this leaves them now?
I think it's disappointing for Marseille because they had so many chances in this game to score a goal. I think it was 17 attempts, 5 on target, 5 of those were blocked, 2 hit the post. And Athletic, defended, and it was surprising how much Marseille took it to them. Also playing 4-4-2, which is very brave. They had to go for the tie, obviously, but to give up sort of that possession in midfield, to do that, to play the 2 up front. And, Stephen Fletcher, who I thought was a strange signing in January, actually looked like he was working quite well and linking up quite well with the team, and it was just wasted chances. As for Michel at Marseille, I don't know as much about the league as you do, Kris, but I know he's not liked there, particularly by the fans. They've got some interesting sort of nicknames for him. Lots of them want Bielsa back. So I'm not sure I can see him lasting past the summer myself. But it's weird because Marseille had such a poor start to the season, and then they sort of looked like they were turning things around. And in this game, what bits I saw of it, it looked like to me they should have gone through. But if you can't finish and take your chances, then you're going to get punished.
Yeah, I think they're very unfortunate. I do think they should have gone through, but nevertheless, they didn't. So, hey ho, that's life. Let's quickly recap the other results, then we'll just ping through the sides that are through. So Anderlecht eventually getting through against Olympiacos. That one went to extra time, but Anderlecht scoring 2 goals in extra time, going through 3-1 on aggregate. Sevilla, they lost the second leg to Mulder, by a goal to nil. However, they go through 3-1 on aggregate. Who else have we not cut? Sporting Braga, 4-3 victory over Sion. A good tie, that, actually. They go through. And Krasnodar, they lost 4-0 on aggregate to Sparta Prague. Good result, that, for Prague, winning 3-0 in Russia. That's quite a result for them. So they also go through. So that means, did you want to just literally read out all the teams qualified for the next stage?
Yeah, sure. So in the draw, which will be tomorrow, you will have, because I haven't got it here, I'll have to read it off the results. Fenerbahce, Liverpool, Lazio, Athletic Bilbao, Shakhtar Donetsk, Sparta Praha, Bayer Leverkusen, Valencia, Villarreal, Basel, Sevilla, Manchester United, Anderlecht, Tottenham and Dortmund. So some really big teams still in there. It'll be very interesting to see who gets drawn against who. And I think from this round on, you can get drawn against teams from your own country as well now.
Yes, I think that's the case, isn't it? Yeah. So
I think that's now removed. Yeah, so you could see all English or all Spanish ties, things like that now.
Interesting. Could be quite the game to watch, and it looks like quite an entertaining competition this year. Dare I say it? So.
Yeah, I think the last few years it has got better. It suffers from the fact that it goes on for so long, that it starts so early. But when you sort of get to this, even past this round, so when you get to the round of 16 onwards, it's a much more exciting competition. But obviously it does depend on whether teams will take it seriously up until this point. I think when you get to this point, if you're still in it, then you start to think, oh, actually, this is a chance of us getting a Champions League spot. So you do tend to focus on it a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be worth a watch, and obviously we will cover the ins and outs of what happens. And as you said earlier on, John, we will get the draw posted when it's up tomorrow. We'll probably post that a couple of hours after that goes up. So keep an eye on our Twitter feed for that. Right, we'll do a couple of questions then before we leave our listeners in peace for another Satchel. We shall have a look and see what people have sent us. Now, the first question I'm going to ask you is one that I think you've had to do some research for, courtesy of, I think it was Jimmy, wasn't it? Jimmy R at @NN_Gooner. He wanted to.
Oh yes, my new favourite person.
Thanks, Jimmy. You keep John busy. He wanted to know if you can explain the factors that determine how many Champions League spots a league gets. So you've had to put those reading glasses on and dig through the manuals of UEFA again, haven't you?
Yeah, it's interesting reading their books.
Honest.
And all the rules that go with it. So to try and break it down without boring you to death, it's all done on the point system. So each team will get 2 points for a win, 1 for a draw. Points are halved for matches in the in the qualifying and playoff rounds. I don't know why, it's just the way they do it. Any teams that reach the round of 16 quarterfinals, semis or finals of the Champions League, or the same for the Europa League, are awarded an extra point for each round. And in addition to that, 4 points are awarded for participation in the group stage of the UEFA Champions League, and 4 points for qualifying for the round of 16. Right, so that's how the points are all awarded. Have you followed me so far?
Ish.
The coefficient is then calculated by working out the average score, which is done by dividing the number of points obtained by the total number of clubs representing an association in that season's 2 club competitions. So essentially, without going too in-depth into the maths, you have, at the moment, you will have, say, like 7 teams from Spain. Depending on how many points they get, that is then divided by the number of teams, and then that will give them an average, which is then awarded them for that season. Then, when they're working out which team is the highest ranked coefficient, they look at that season and the previous 4 seasons. So it's worked over a 5-year rolling period, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I've got you.
Yeah, so at the moment, basically, Spain are way out in front. They're not going to be caught by anyone. Then it's Germany. Just below them is England, and Italy were catching England up. This is kind of why this question's come about, because most of the other associations are far enough apart that it's not going to be an issue. Italy tonight, because of the teams that have gone out, they'll actually be knocked back a bit. But obviously then you have to count in what could possibly happen in the Champions League with the English sides and whether they go out or not. If Juventus and Lazio go far enough in the competitions, in the 2 respective competitions, and the other English sides all lose out, there is a chance, it's very slim, but it won't happen next year, it would be the year after, that a Champions League spot would be taken from England and then awarded to Italy because they would have a higher coefficient ranking.
There you go. So there you go, Jimmy. If you can't follow that, then you can't follow anything because that's what you do.
If you would like to look it up yourself to work it out, there is actually a if you type in UEFA coefficients, it will actually take you to the official UEFA website, and you can go by the FA of each country, and it will give you a breakdown of the last 5 years and how many points they've got, and you can even go by club, so you can look at which is something to do with the seeding for, say, like the Champions League, for example. Like Real Madrid are currently top; they have more points than any other club, then Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and so on. So you can look even into that detail. So if you're really sad, you can look up things like that and read all these books and rules that Kris makes me do.
Hey, I'm not guilty. I just read the questions. I have nothing to do with this. Harry.
But yeah, it's hard to follow. But the basic thing is, partly why I assume Jimmy's asking is because of the English thing. Basically, English teams don't take the Europa League seriously enough, and because of that, and because they're getting knocked out early, it knocks the coefficient. So even if we do well in the Champions League, you have to account for what you do in the Europa League as well. That's why Spain's got bumped up so much, because their clubs started taking it more seriously. Italy and Germany have started to take the Europa League more seriously, which is why Germany got the extra Champions League spot that they didn't have before, and Italy are trying to do that same thing to bump their coefficient up to get another one.
Yes, it's definitely, as you say, teams that take it more seriously get the better results. So there's a lesson to be learnt there. Harry Squires _ he wanted to know how many English teams do we think will go through to the last 8. Don't know if you agree, but I can see Man City being the only representative in the Champions League final 8. Is it final 8 or final 4?
Yeah.
Final 8,
final 8,
yeah. I think City will comfortably go through. I don't like Chelsea's chances personally. I would be biased, of course, but and in the Europa League, it's impossible to say because we don't know the draw. I would say Spurs probably are the side that you would look at and say they're best equipped to go far.
Yeah. I've actually thought Liverpool were quite impressive tonight. Coutinho and Firmino in particular looked really good up front tonight for Liverpool. So I think on their day, it really does depend on the draw, but I think they're good enough that on their day they can beat quite a lot of teams that maybe people wouldn't fancy them against. But if you saw them get drawn against, say, a Borussia Dortmund, for example, something like that's going to represent a harder tie. Man United, I have no idea
what's going to turn
with
out,
them.
Isn't it? It must be written in the stars that Jurgen Klopp will draw Dortmund. Surely that's got to be written in the stars, isn't it?
Yeah, you would think so, something like that, or maybe it's like Liverpool. They don't win the League Cup final, for example, or something this weekend, but get to the final of the Europa League and it's against Dortmund, something like that. Yeah, that's typical of football. Isn't it?
Pigman J. Homkenstein, he wants to know, has Del Bosque ruled out Iker Casillas from being the starting keeper at the Euros, and if not, shouldn't he? After his, I don't think it was his fault tonight, but he has been pretty errorsome over the season. Do you see De Gea being the first choice in the summer?
I would think so. I know he's injured at the moment, but I assume he'll come back from that fine. It's just a knock. He's been one of the few sort of shining lights at United this season. I think it's been a long time coming that he would probably get the number 1 spot. And, it's not just him. There's other keepers, Spanish keepers, who've been performing excellent this season. Pepe Reina would be one I would put ahead of Casillas, which is not something I would have said in the past, but the performances he's put in for Napoli this season have been absolutely fantastic. So there's plenty of keepers ahead of him. It's a shame to say, because Casillas is sort of mine and your generation growing up watching football. He really is one of the great goalkeepers who you thought would go on forever in a way that Gigi Buffon has, but his career seems to, or his performances at least, seem to have really tanked and gone downhill. It's quite sad to see.
Yeah, it is. There's another question here, or a statement actually here, really, from Nathan Young, who says Arsenal pay attention and sign phenoms Batshuayi, Iñaki and Carvalho. I'm not sure about the third one, but the other two, I know Tom would be happy to hear one, and I'm happy with the other. So that's just a quick statement from Nathan Young. So welcome aboard to you, Nathan, if it's the first time you've listened to us. We also had another question from Checky Nando's lad, who always asks really good questions, but because of the nature of this question, I'm actually going to save this for Monday's pod. Main reason being, he wants to know what changes to the Champions League or Europa League would you make in order to make it better. I'm going to store that because I'm actually going to ask all of our our hipsters to give an opinion on that on Monday. So I shall pass that on to Drew and Tom, and we'll all have an answer individually on Monday for you, Checky. So I think that's a nice way of sidestepping a question that could be very interesting to debate. So we'll ping that one out on Monday. Final question tonight then comes from Kat, who is our kind of chief website builder, helper, tech person, whatever you like to call her. But she's part of the crew here, and she wanted to know, John, because you weren't on Monday, you didn't really have an opportunity to talk about the Francesco Totti situation. And Kat said she'd hate to see him leave the club of his heart. So for our listeners that don't know the situation, do you want to just bring them up to speed and then maybe have a quick word about what you think of that situation?
Yeah, it's a very strange one. Totti basically came out and said, in not in a direct interview, but sort of in bits and pieces to journalists, in the what they call the mix zone after games and stuff, just making little comments here and there that he felt disrespected, not particularly by Spalletti, but more by the club. The fact that he hasn't played so much was sad. That a player like him, who's given his whole career to one club, isn't getting played more and isn't given more respect. So obviously, Luciano Spalletti, the Roma manager, has been asked about this different times in press conferences, and he sort of tried to sidestep the questions at first, but eventually came around to answering and basically said, I love Luca. He's amazing, but there's only so much you can ask of a player of his age to do in this team. And let's be honest, as good as Totti is, he cannot run like he used to. He's 37, is he now? I think that's correct. I'll have to double check.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
Yeah. So it was sort of going back and forth, and Spalletti was being very diplomatic. Didn't say anything wrong. Just said, Francesco Totti, if he needs. When we need him, we will play him. But at the moment, he's 39.
I was just going to say 39. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he can't really play in this team anymore, so he needs to choose a position within the club, and they've offered him, coaching roles, ambassadorial roles, director's position. They will play him. Totti then responded again. The fans weren't happy with what Spalletti said, and I don't think Spalletti said anything wrong, to be perfectly honest. I thought he was very diplomatic and said all the right things, made all the right noises. Totti then was barred from training because of some of the comments he made towards sort of more about the club than Spalletti himself. They then went to play the game at the weekend, which Totti was dropped for. He was originally going to be picked, but because of other comments he made, he dropped him again. He then turned up at the game, and it wasn't clear whether he was invited or not, but he cheered the team on, and the team won anyway. After that, it was all cleared up, and Spalletti said, look, there's nothing wrong between me and Francesco, it's fine. They shook hands, he reappeared at training, he's back in training again, he got selected, he was in the squad, and it seems to have all calmed down. But obviously this alerted a lot of other clubs, and there's not the level of teams that were in for him in the past, in like the Real Madrid and Barcelona's that were when he was younger, but there are other teams thinking that they could get at least a year out of Francesco Totti, and like Kat said, it would be very, very sad to see him leave. I think what everyone at Roma would like to see happen is for him to retire at the end of the season and then take up a position within the club. But it seems like Totti wants to carry on playing. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think actually the club and Spalletti himself, they've all handled this perfectly and not done anything wrong at all. And it's sad that it's actually Totti himself, I think, has made this more of a mess. But what's come out of it worse is that despite the Roma have had this big turnaround on their sort of terrible start to the season under Spalletti, the fans have kind of gotten Spalletti's back, backing their player. Which you can understand to a certain degree because he is such a legend there. But it's, in my mind anyway, it's him who's in the wrong. And he should probably be a lot more respectful towards the manager. So we'll see where it goes.
All of that good work could be undone, essentially, couldn't it? So we shall see. But you're right, I think it'd be a shame to see him move on without staying at the club he loves. But
yeah, there's very few players that do that anymore. I mean, people will look at like Steven Gerrard, who obviously has gone off to the MLS. I think if he retired when he left Liverpool, most people would have said, yeah, that's fine, and it's not marring his reputation playing, in the league in America, but it's it's almost like kind of a sad end to a career, rather than would you not rather go out on a high note with your club? You know, Daniele De Rossi is another player who's been at Roma for a long time, and I certainly could never see him in anyone else's club shirt. And if the unthinkable did happen and Totti ended up at another team after the summer, that would be amazing to see him wearing anything but Roma's colours.
Yeah, agree. And just very quickly, because we'll probably discuss this more on Monday again, but just quickly, there's some news that broke potentially tonight from Sky Italia that were claiming that Antonio Conte, the Italian national manager, his representatives are set to hold talks with Chelsea about a potential move where he would be able to leave Italy without compensation at the end of his contract after the Euros. As I say, I want to go into this in more depth on Monday, but just very quickly, is it a good fit, do you think?
It's difficult because it's a completely different league to what he's managed in Serie A. The strange thing for me is that whilst Conte is a good manager and he's good enough to manage the players of the level and sort of calibre that Chelsea have and will buy, his record in Europe isn't fantastic. So that certainly doesn't fit with Abramovich's plan, which is to win the Champions League and be more competitive in that. But is he good enough for the club? Yeah, certainly. Whether they'll achieve the aims that they want and what Abramovich wants is a totally different thing.
Well said. And friend of the pod, Mina Rizuki, gave her views to BBC Radio 5 Live last night, if you want to listen to that. So she said very much the same. So do give that a listen, and do, of course, give our interview a listen. Right, okay, that is it from us for this week. Shortened show. We like to whip through these as best we can. Just a few very short plugs. The Breakfast Pod returns on Sunday, myself and Ross, and possibly one other. We shall see what happens. Also, the pod, as usual, will come back on Monday. We have a poll that is still up on our Twitter account, which you can still vote in. I think there's only a day left of it. And it's simply whether we're asking you guys and girls, the listeners, whether you want us to do a monthly round table podcast where we all just sort of sit around and just talk about various subjects. And at the moment, 65% of you are saying it's a great idea. So that may well happen. And, of course, the pod from last week or this past week is up, minus John, of course. But do give that a listen. And finally, we have another interview which will be released tomorrow. It should be up sort of tomorrow afternoon. It's with Christian Nouri, who is the editor-in-chief of Get French Football News. So as you can probably imagine, that's one that I've done. And myself and Christian sat down for around about 40 minutes a couple of weeks ago, just sort of chatting all things sort of Liga and Ligue 2, the Euros. We covered quite a lot of subjects in quite a short space of time. So do give that a listen. John, you'll be back with us on Monday, all being well, I presume?
Yes, I will be back on Monday, and just to make you and me feel old, although you're a little bit older than me, Chris, actually making me feel extra old. Totti started playing when I was just 8 years old, his professional career.
Make me feel very, very old.
And he's still playing now.
Jesus, scary.
My career's been and gone already.
Scary, isn't it? Yeah, I was going to say mine's done and dusted. Right, well, we shall speak on Monday as usual, and please keep the feedback coming, whether it by iTunes, via YouTube, tweeting us. We do value your opinion. We do value your input, and if you're a new or first time listener, let us know what you think. We always like to hear from new listeners. So that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. And we will speak to you on Sunday for the Breakfast Pod and on Monday for the usual pod. Thank you.
Down by Cafu. In towards Gerrard! Hello! Here we go! Steven Gerrard! Now Ronaldinho. Oh, it's a terrific goal! Wonderful, wonderful goal!
It's a mistake by Bernat, and it's let Messi in! He makes the difference for Barcelona!
Popped into the penalty area towards Zidane! Oh, fantastic!